Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Rain drummed against the windows of the Seattle apartment, each drop racing down the glass like tears Noah Callan had stopped shedding years ago. He sat at his desk in the corner, three monitors casting blue light across his face as code scrolled past. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, building the architecture that would change everything. Across the room, Lila sat on the cream sofa they'd bought together 5 years ago. Her phone glowed in her hands, thumbs swiping upward in that endless scroll he'd come to recognize as her escape. She sighed, then again louder. Noah didn't look up. He knew what was coming. "Jonas just got a Tesla," Lila said. Her voice carried that particular edge he'd heard more often lately. Model S Plaid. $60,000 car, just like that. "Good for Jonas," Noah said, eyes still on his screen. His wife's doing modeling campaigns now. Boutique brands, but still. She posted from their weekend in Napa. Private vineyard tour. Another sigh. "And we're still here." Noah saved his work and turned his chair around. Lila sat with her legs tucked under her, wearing the black cashmere sweater he'd bought her last Christmas. Her dark hair fell past her shoulders, and even tired from a day at the office, she looked like she'd stepped out of one of the magazines she constantly read. "We own this place, Lila," he said, keeping his voice even. She looked up from her phone, and he saw something flicker in her eyes. Not anger yet, just dissatisfaction, like she'd tasted something bitter. "Correction," she said. "You own this tiny condo. It's not the same." The words landed between them like stones dropped in still water. Noah watched the ripples spread. Tiny condo, 900 square feet in Capitol Hill, bought outright 3 years ago. No mortgage, no debt. Worth $400,000 now, maybe more. But to Lila, it wasn't a victory. It was evidence of his lack of ambition. He turned back to his monitors without responding. Behind him, he heard her phone buzz. Another notification. Another reminder of someone else's seemingly better life. "Your sister called today," Lila said after a moment. "Rita wants to know if we're coming to Portland next month." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd check with you. Though I don't know why she bothers. It's not like we can afford a nice hotel there anyway." Noah's jaw tightened. Rita lived in a one-bedroom apartment and worked 70-hour weeks at a law firm that underpaid her. She'd never once made Lila feel small. But somewhere along the way, Lila had started measuring everyone by what they owned instead of who they were. "We can afford it," Noah said quietly. "Can we? Because you won't even tell me how much you make at that company. For all I know, you're barely scraping by and too proud to admit it." He almost laughed. Obsidian Shield wasn't that company. It was his company, built from nothing over 4 years of 18-hour days and strategic patience. But the patents weren't finalized yet. The government contracts were still in negotiation. And Lila had made it clear months ago that she didn't want to hear about potential or eventually. She wanted results she could photograph and post. "I earn enough," he said. "That's not an answer, Noah. It's the only one I have right now." She stood up, phone clutched in her hand. "You know what? Forget it. I'm going to bed." She walked past him toward their bedroom, and he caught the scent of her perfume. Something expensive she'd bought last week. He noticed a charge on their shared credit card. $260 for a bottle the size of his thumb. "Lila," he said. She stopped but didn't turn around. "We're fine," he said. "We have everything we need." "That's the problem," she said. "You think fine is enough." The bedroom door closed. Not slammed, just closed with a soft click that somehow felt worse. Noah sat in the blue glow of his monitors, alone with the code that would make them both rich beyond Lila's Instagram dreams. He'd tell her eventually, when the time was right, when he knew for certain that she wanted him and not just what he could provide. But tonight, watching her walk away, he wondered if that time would ever come. Evelyn Hart arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 days before everything fell apart. Noah heard the knock and knew immediately who it was. Lila's mother had a particular way of knocking. 3 sharp raps followed by a pause, then 2 more. Like she was announcing royalty. He opened the door. Evelyn stood in the hallway, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than their monthly expenses. Her silver hair was pulled back in a perfect twist, and her smile was the kind that never reached her eyes. "Noah," she said, stepping past him without waiting for an invitation. "Is Lila home yet?" "She's at work. She'll be back in an hour." "Perfect. That gives us time to talk." Noah closed the door and followed her into the living room. She didn't sit. Instead, she walked to the window and looked out at the Seattle skyline, hands clasped behind her back like a general surveying a disappointing battlefield. "How long have you and Lila been married now?" she asked. 6 years. You were at the wedding." 6 years, she repeated, ignoring his comment. "And what do you have to show for it? This apartment? That truck you refused to replace?" Noah leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Is there a point to this, Evelyn?" She turned to face him. "My daughter is 34 years old. She works at one of the most prestigious fashion marketing firms in Seattle. She networks with people who own vacation homes in 3 countries. And every day, she comes back here." She gestured around the room like it was a crime scene. "To this. To her home," Noah said. "To a life that's beneath her." The words hung in the air between them. Noah studied Evelyn's face and saw no shame in it. She believed every word she was saying. In her world, love was a transaction, and he wasn't holding up his end of the bargain. "I'm building something," he said. "It takes time. You've been saying that for 4 years. Lila has been patient. I've encouraged her to be patient. But patience has limits, Noah. She could have married Richard Chun from her firm. He drove a BMW and owned property in Bellevue. Or David Rodriguez from her college. He's a surgeon now. Then maybe she should have." Evelyn smiled, and it was the coldest thing Noah had seen all week. "Maybe she still can." The door opened. Lila walked in, dropping her bag on the counter and stopping when she saw them both. "Mom? What are you doing here?" "Having a conversation with your husband." Evelyn walked over and kissed Lila's cheek. "Darling, you look exhausted. Are they working you too hard?" "Just a busy week." Lila looked between them. "What kind of conversation?" "The kind about your future," Evelyn said. She sat down on the sofa, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. "Sit, both of you." Noah stayed standing. Lila sat on the arm of the couch, one foot touching the floor like she might need to run. "Lila, darling, you've outgrown this phase," Evelyn said. "You can't build a life with a man who doesn't want more." "Mom, let me finish. You're a smart, beautiful, accomplished woman, but you're anchoring yourself to someone who's content with mediocrity. Noah might be comfortable with his little projects and his old truck, but you're not. I see it in your eyes every time we have lunch. You're miserable." "I'm not miserable," Lila said, but her voice lacked conviction. Evelyn reached over and took her daughter's hand. "You deserve more than this. More than a man who won't even tell you what he earns. More than this apartment that you're embarrassed to show your friends. More than a life where you're the one working harder while he tinkers in the corner." "I work 60 hours a week building something real," Noah said, his voice still calm. "Something that matters." "To who?" Evelyn asked. "Because it clearly doesn't matter to my daughter's happiness." Lila pulled her hand away from her mother's. She stood up and walked to the window, arms wrapped around herself. Noah watched her reflection in the glass. Her face was tight with something he couldn't quite read. "Lila," he said, "tell me what you want." She didn't turn around. "I want to stop feeling like I'm failing because we don't live like everyone else I work with. I want to stop making excuses about why we can't go on trips or why we're not looking at bigger places. I want you to be honest with me about money. Numbers aren't trust, Lila, but hiding them is." She spun around. "Jonas makes $210,000 a year. His wife knows exactly what they can afford. They plan together. They build together. Jonas takes credit for other people's ideas and calls it leadership," Noah said. "But sure, he's very transparent about it." "See?" Evelyn stood up. "This is what I'm talking about. Defensive. Secretive. Lila, you can't live like this. You can't live with a man who earns less than you and won't admit it." "I don't earn less than her," Noah said quietly. "Then prove it." Evelyn shot back. "Show her your accounts, your contracts, your worth, or admit that you're asking her to settle for less than she deserves." Noah looked at Lila. Her arms were still wrapped around herself, and she wouldn't meet his eyes. In that moment, he understood something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't about money. It was about what money represented to her. Status, security, proof of value. And no matter what he said right now, she'd already decided he lacked all three. If you think you can do better, he said, his voice even and calm, you should. The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Lila's eyes went wide. What? I mean it. If you think there's someone out there who can give you what you want more than I can, you shouldn't stay here. Evelyn's smile was triumphant. Finally, some honesty. But Lila just stared at him. You're saying you want me to leave? I'm saying I won't beg you to stay if you don't want to be here. That's not what I asked. It's the answer you're getting. Lila's face flushed red. You're unbelievable. My mother comes here worried about me. And instead of trying to fix things, you just give up? I'm not giving up, Noah said. I'm respecting your choice. I haven't made a choice. Haven't you? The question sat between them, heavy and final. Lila opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. And in that silence, Noah saw the truth written across her face as clearly as code on a screen. She had already made her choice. She just didn't have the courage to say it yet. Evelyn picked up her purse. I'll call you tomorrow, darling. Think about what you really want from your life. She walked to the door, paused, and looked back at Noah. You know, I almost liked you once. You seemed stable, steady, but stability without growth is just stagnation. And my daughter deserves better than stagnant. She left. The door closed. Lila and Noah stood in the apartment, 10 feet and 6 years between them. I need time to think, Lila said finally. Take all the time you need. She grabbed her bag and walked toward the bedroom. At the door, she stopped. Do you even care if I stay? Noah looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman he'd married in a small ceremony on a beach in Oregon. The woman who'd once told him she loved how he thought about the world. The woman who'd slowly, over 6 years, become someone he barely recognized. I care, he said, but I won't compete with the life your mother thinks you should have. Either you want this, want us, or you don't. That's not fair. It's the only thing that is. She went into the bedroom and closed the door. Noah heard the lock click. He walked back to his desk, sat down, and stared at his monitors. The code was still there. The architecture of Obsidian Shield, perfect and waiting. In 3 weeks, the patents would finalize. In 2 months, the government contracts would be signed. He'd built an empire in silence while his wife measured his worth in Instagram posts and luxury cars. And now she would leave, thinking she was trading up. Noah almost felt sorry for her. Almost. 5 days later, Lila's suitcases sat by the door. Noah had watched her pack methodically over the past 3 evenings. Clothes first, then shoes, then the small things she'd accumulated. Picture frames went into boxes. Books came off shelves. She moved through the apartment like she was erasing herself from it. He didn't help. He didn't argue. He just watched. On the 5th day, she called him from the bedroom. I need you to look at these papers. He walked in. She sat on the edge of their bed. Her bed now, he supposed, with a stack of documents spread beside her. Legal letterhead. Dissolution of marriage. My lawyer drew these up, she said. She wouldn't look at him. I think the terms are fair. Noah picked up the first page. His eyes scanned the text. Spousal support. Division of assets. She wanted the apartment. The furniture. The car. Though it was an old Ford truck worth maybe $8,000. Monthly payments for 3 years while she adjusted to single life. You want alimony, he said. The lawyer said, I'm entitled to it. I gave up opportunities to support your career. I could have taken positions in New York or Los Angeles, but I stayed here because you wanted to build your company in Seattle. You stayed because you liked your job. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She finally looked up at him. Her eyes were dry. No tears, just determination. I'm not trying to punish you, but I need to protect myself. You won't tell me what you have, so I have to assume you have less than me, which means I need to be realistic about what I'm walking away from. Noah set the papers down on the bed. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. Rain again. Always rain in Seattle. Behind him, he heard Lila shift on the bed. Are you going to fight this? She asked. No. Sign wherever you want me to sign. I'll give you what you're asking for. Silence. Then, just like that. I don't understand you. Her voice cracked just slightly. Don't you care at all? Aren't you angry? He turned around. She was standing now, hands clenched at her sides. For the first time in days, she looked uncertain. "I'm not angry," he said. "You've made your choice. You decided I'm not enough. Fighting you won't change that. I haven't decided you're not enough. I've decided I can't live like this anymore. There's a difference." "Is there?" She grabbed the papers and thrust them toward him. "Fine. You want to act like you don't care? Sign them. Sign everything. Then you can go back to your computers and your secrets, and I can finally start living the life I want." Noah took the papers. He walked to the desk, found a pen, and signed every page that needed his signature. He didn't read the fine print, didn't negotiate, just signed. When he finished, he walked back and handed them to her. "Anything else?" he asked. Lila stared at the papers in her hands. She opened her mouth, closed it. For a moment, Noah thought she might say something real, something true, but then her jaw set, and he saw the walls go back up. "Mom's waiting downstairs," she said. "I should go." She picked up her purse and the papers. Noah followed her to the living room. The suitcases were by the door. Everything she decided she needed. "I'll come back for the rest later," she said. "When you're not here. Take your time." She reached for the door handle, then stopped. "Noah, yeah. Do you think this is a mistake?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and he told her the truth. "I think you'll find out." Her face hardened. "Right. Well, goodbye then." She opened the door and pulled her suitcases into the hallway. Noah watched her walk toward the elevator. She didn't look back. Not once. When the elevator doors closed, he shut the apartment door and locked it. He stood in the now empty living room. Half the furniture was gone. The walls had pale squares where pictures used to hang. It looked like a crime scene after the body had been removed. Noah walked to the window and watched the street below. A few minutes later, Lila emerged from the building. Evelyn's Mercedes was waiting at the curb. Lila loaded her suitcases into the trunk while her mother sat in the driver's seat, probably already making plans for her daughter's new life. Just before getting in the car, Lila looked up at the building. At their window, Noah knew she couldn't see him from this angle, just his reflection in the darkened glass. But he raised one hand anyway. A small wave. A goodbye. Lila got in the car. The Mercedes pulled away from the curb and disappeared into Seattle traffic. Noah stood at the window for a long time after she was gone. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. Same face, same calm expression, but something in his eyes had changed. In 3 weeks, the patents would finalize. In 2 months, the government contracts would be signed. Obsidian Shield would be valued at $480 million, and Noah would own 67% of it. Lila had signed away any claim to it 13 minutes ago. She'd mistaken his calm for weakness, his patience for inability, his silence for emptiness. She'd learned better. They all would. He smiled at his reflection. Not in pain, not in anger, in strategy. 6 weeks after leaving Noah, Lila posted her first picture from her new life. She stood on a balcony, Jonas Meyer's balcony, though she didn't caption it as such, overlooking Seattle's waterfront. She wore a white silk blouse and held a glass of wine. Behind her, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she'd used a different phrase in the caption, "Wall of glass." You could see modern furniture and abstract art. The caption read, "New chapter, new view, grateful for second chances." The post got 322 likes. Evelyn called within an hour. "You look radiant, darling. That place is stunning. Much better than, well, I'm glad you're happy." "I am," Lila said and meant it. Jonas had made his interest clear 2 weeks after she'd moved out. A text first. "Heard about you and Noah. I'm sorry." Then coffee. Then dinner. Then an invitation to see his place in Belltown, a corner unit with 2 bedrooms and views that cost him $7,000 a month in rent. "I've been waiting for the right time," Jonas had said over wine on his balcony. You were always too good for him. Everyone at the firm knew it. It had been easy to fall into. Jonas was everything Noah wasn't. Charismatic, social, eager to be seen with her at company events and dinners. He introduced her to partners. He made connections feel effortless. And he never, not once, made her feel small. Within a month, she'd moved half her things into his place. Evelyn had been delighted. Lila's friends had been supportive. Even people at work seemed to look at her differently now that she was dating the vice president of marketing instead of married to some guy nobody knew. "You made the right choice," her coworker Stephanie said one afternoon. They were having lunch at an upscale sushi place near the office. "Jonas has real presence. He's going places." "He's already there," Lila said, watching Jonas across the restaurant as he charmed a potential client. "VP before 40. That's rare. And he treats you right. That's rarer." Lila smiled and took a sip of her sake. She didn't mention how Jonas had started asking her to work late on projects he'd claim as his own in meetings, or how he'd suggested she wear something striking to the last company dinner, or how, just once, when she'd questioned his budget allocation, he'd said, "Let me handle the strategy, babe. You're great at execution." Those were small things. Adjustments. Every relationship required compromise. Besides, life was good. Better than good. She'd moved from a 900-square-foot condo to a luxury apartment. From a man who dressed in jeans and flannel to one who wore tailored suits. From invisibility to visibility. She made the right choice. 3 months after Lila left, Noah's phone rang at 2 in the morning. It was Dean Patel, his lead engineer and closest thing to a friend who wasn't family. Dean's voice was hoarse with exhaustion and triumph. "It's done. The contracts are signed. DOD just sent confirmation. We're official." Noah sat up in bed. "All of them. All of them. Defense, energy, and homeland security. 3-year contracts with options to extend. Boss, we just became the primary cybersecurity architecture for half the federal government's critical systems." Noah stood and walked to his living room window. The city glowed in the dark. Somewhere out there, Lila was probably asleep in Jonas Meyer's bed, dreaming of a life she thought she'd upgraded into. "Send me the numbers," Noah said. "Already did. Check your email." "But boss, we're looking at a valuation of $480 million. Maybe more if we factor in the extension clauses. And my share, you own 67%. Do the math." Noah did the math. $321 million. Give or take. He thought about Lila's face when she'd asked for the apartment. The furniture. 3 years of alimony. $1,800 a month. $64,000 total. She'd negotiated hard for $64,000 while walking away from $321 million. "Boss." Dean's voice pulled him back. "You still there?" "I'm here. We should celebrate. The whole team. I'm thinking somewhere expensive as hell. We earned it." "Set it up," Noah said. "But keep it quiet for now. I don't want press releases until we're ready." "You got it." "Hey, have you told anyone yet?" "Your family." Noah thought about calling Rita. She'd be proud. She'd also want to know if he'd told Lila. "Not yet," he said. "You going to?" "Eventually." Dean laughed. "Man, you're cold." "I love it." "All right, I'll let you process. We'll talk tomorrow." The call ended. Noah stood in his empty apartment, phone in hand, and looked out at Seattle. The rain had stopped. For once, the sky was clear, and he could see stars. Somewhere out there, in a luxury apartment with wall-to-wall windows and rent that cost more than most people's mortgages, Lila was building her new life. Let her. When the time was right, she'd learn exactly what she'd walked away from. But not yet. Not until it hurt more. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Lila was getting ready for work. Her phone buzzed. Martin Harlow, her divorce attorney. She almost didn't answer. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks ago, and she'd already paid his final invoice. But something made her pick up. "Lila Cowan?" His voice sounded strange. "Tight. It's just Lila Hart now," she said, clipping on an earring. "I took back my maiden name. Remember?" "Right. Of course. Listen, we need to talk. Are you sitting down?" She stopped moving. "Why?" "I just got a call from Noah's attorney. Actually, not his attorney. His corporate attorney. From a firm I've never heard of because they only handle 8- and 9-figure clients." Lila's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about? When did Noah start his company?" "Obsidian something?" "Obsidian Shield. 4 years ago." "What? And you knew about this during your marriage?" "Of course I knew. He worked on it constantly. It was all he talked about when he talked at all." She sat down on Jonas's bed. "Martin, what's going on?" She heard papers rustling. "Lila, why didn't you tell me about this?" "Tell you what, Noah's company. He's not just an employee. He's the founder and majority shareholder. They just signed contracts with the federal government. multiple agencies. The company's been valued at $480 million. The words didn't make sense at first. Lila heard them individually, $480 million, but they wouldn't connect into meaning. That's not possible, she said. It's very possible. It's public record as of yesterday. Obsidian Shield is being called the most important cybersecurity advancement in a decade. And your ex-husband owns 67% of it. Lila's hand shook. The phone nearly slipped from her grip. Noah told me he was building something. He never said it was worth anything. He drove an old truck. He wore the same clothes for years. We lived in a tiny condo. A condo he owned outright, I'm guessing. Yes, but, Lila. Martin's voice was patient but firm. You signed away all claims to marital assets. We established that Noah had minimal holdings based on the information you provided. You said he was secretive about money, so we assumed he didn't have much. But if he owned 67% of a company worth this much during your marriage, you just walked away from. Don't, she said. Don't say the number. But he said it anyway. Roughly $321 million. Your share would have been half. $160 million. Maybe more, depending on how we argued marital contribution. The room tilted. Lila gripped the edge of the bed. She couldn't breathe right. Couldn't think. Can we fight it? She asked. Can we claim he had assets? Did he? He must have. He never told me any of this. Did you ask? Did you request financial disclosure during the marriage? Lila thought back to their fights, to her mother's visits, to the day she'd served him divorce papers. She'd been so certain he had nothing. She'd felt generous asking for the apartment and 3 years of support. She'd thought she was being practical. He never volunteered information, she said weakly. That's not the same as lying, Lila. If you didn't ask, and he didn't lie when asked directly, then legally he did nothing wrong. He just let you make assumptions. He knew what I'd do. Maybe he did, but that's not fraud. That's just... Martin paused. That's just smart. Lila ended the call. She sat on the bed in Jonas's apartment, surrounded by expensive furniture and a view of the city, and felt the world reshape itself around her. Noah had been rich the entire time. Not comfortable, not secure. Rich. Insanely, impossibly rich. And he'd let her leave. Let her sign papers. Let her walk away thinking she'd made the smart choice. No, not let. Planned. She grabbed her phone and scrolled through her contacts. Found Noah's number. Her thumb hovered over it. What would she even say? She pressed call. It rang 4 times. Then his voice, calm and familiar. This is Noah. You deceived me. The words came out sharp. Angry. Lila, I was wondering when you'd call. You knew what I'd do. You let me think you had nothing. You let me leave. You never asked what I had. You just measured worth in paychecks and followers. That's not fair, isn't it? His voice was maddeningly calm. You wanted me to compete with Jonas's Tesla and his Instagram life. You wanted proof I could give you luxury. I was building something real, but you couldn't see past the surface. You should have told me. Why? So you'd stay for the money instead of leaving for it. The question hit her like cold water. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You knew what I'd do, she repeated quieter now. Exactly. The word hung between them. Confirmation, admission, victory. I gave you everything you asked for, Noah continued. The apartment, the support payments. I didn't fight you on a single demand. And you thought I was weak. Thought I was giving up because I had nothing to fight for. You planned this. I'll let you be who you really are. There's a difference. Lila's eyes burned. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't give him that. You're a bastard. I'm the same person I was 6 months ago. You're the one who changed. Or maybe you were always this way, and I just finally saw it. I want to renegotiate. The divorce is final. We can fight it. I can claim you had assets. I didn't hide anything. I just didn't advertise. You want to drag this through courts? Go ahead. Spend money you don't have fighting for money you signed away. My lawyers are very good, and they're already paid. She wanted to scream, wanted to throw the phone. Instead, she just said, I hate you. No, you don't. You hate that you were wrong. There's a difference. He paused. Goodbye, Lila. Enjoy your new life. The call ended. Lila sat in the silence of Jonas's apartment and felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart. Something deeper. the foundation of every choice she'd made for the past 6 months. She'd traded loyalty for luxury, and loyalty had been worth $300 million more. Lila's first instinct was rage. Her second was revenge. That night, she sat at Jonas's kitchen counter with her laptop and a bottle of wine. Jonas was working late, or so he said. Lately, working late seemed to involve a junior account manager named Christina who wore tight skirts and laughed at his jokes. But Lila had bigger problems than Jonas right now. She opened Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, composing and deleting posts. She wanted the world to know what Noah had done, how he'd deceived her, how he'd let her sign away her future while sitting on hundreds of millions. She typed, "Some people hide who they really are until it's too late. Learn from my mistake." Too vague. She tried again. "My ex-husband let me believe he had nothing while hiding a fortune. Be careful who you trust." Too obvious. She typed a dozen versions. Deleted them all. Finally, she settled on something carefully worded. "Success looks different on everyone. Some people wear it loudly. Others hide it until you're gone. Just found out my ex was a multi-millionaire the whole time. Funny how silence can be its own kind of lie." She posted it. Within minutes, comments rolled in. "Oh my God, what? Are you serious? I'm so sorry, that's awful. Can't you fight it in court?" She felt a grim satisfaction reading them. Let Noah's precious reputation take a hit. Let people know what kind of man he really was. But then other comments started appearing. "Wait, so he earned the money but didn't tell you? That's not the same as lying. Did you ask him about finances? Sounds like you left him, and now you're mad he has money. That's on you." Lila deleted the post. She tried Twitter instead. Vaguer, less personal, but the results were the same. Some people sympathized. Most didn't, and a few were brutal. "You married him. You should have known. Sounds like you left for someone richer, and it backfired. This is why prenups exist." She closed her laptop, poured another glass of wine, stared at her reflection in the dark kitchen window. This wasn't working. The internet didn't care about her pain. They just wanted drama, and she wasn't providing the right kind. She needed something bigger, something real. She picked up her phone and called an old contact. Melissa Tran, a reporter at the Seattle Times who'd once covered the fashion industry and had interviewed Lila for a feature on marketing trends. "Melissa, it's Lila Hart. Yes, I know it's late. Listen, I have a story for you. About Noah Callan, the guy who just signed those government contracts. He's my ex-husband, and I think people should know what kind of person he really is." 3 days later, an article appeared online. The Hidden Fortune, How One Woman's Divorce Became a Cautionary Tale. It was carefully written. No direct accusations. Just Lila's story, told sympathetically. How she'd supported Noah's dream. How he'd never disclosed his company's true value. How she'd signed divorce papers believing she was leaving a struggling entrepreneur, only to discover the truth months later. The article framed it as a warning about transparency in marriage, about the importance of disclosure, about how someone could technically follow the law while still being morally questionable. It got shared 42 times. Then Noah's lawyer released a statement. It was brief, professional, devastating. Mr. Callan's company, Obsidian Shield, has always operated with complete transparency and integrity. These are values he applies to all aspects of his life. During his marriage, Mr. Callan never misrepresented his financial situation. He simply chose not to discuss business matters that were not yet finalized. Ms. Hart's characterization of events is inconsistent with the facts, and we trust that the public will recognize this story for what it is, an attempt to relitigate a settled divorce through public opinion rather than legal channels. The statement got picked up by tech blogs, industry sites. Within hours, the narrative flipped. Bitter ex-wife tries to claim hidden fortune. Startup founder proves you can be rich and humble. She left him. Now she wants his money. Classic. Lila watched her phone blow up with notifications. Most weren't sympathetic. Some were cruel. A few were creative with their insults. Jonas came home that night and found her on the couch, phone face down beside her, wine glass empty. "You're trending on Twitter," he said. Not kindly. "I know. People at the firm are talking." "It's not good, Lila. I was trying to tell the truth. You were trying to hurt him. There's a difference." Jonas sat down, but not next to her. On the other chair. Look, I get that you're upset. But this thing with Noah? You need to let it go. You're making yourself look bad. He made me look bad. No, sweetheart. You did that yourself. The word sweetheart landed wrong. Condescending. Lila looked at Jonas, really looked at him, and saw something she'd missed before. He wasn't concerned. He was embarrassed. Embarrassed to be associated with her now, that she'd become a story instead of success. I should go to bed, she said. Good idea. We have that presentation tomorrow. You're still working on the slides, right? I finished them yesterday. Sent them to you. Oh, right. He stood up. I'll review them tonight. Get some rest. He walked to the bedroom. She heard the door close. Heard him on the phone, voice too low to make out words. Lila sat in the dark living room of an apartment that wasn't hers, surrounded by furniture she hadn't chosen, and understood something fundamental. She traded Noah for Jonas, security for status, quiet wealth for loud ambition. And somewhere across the city, Noah was probably sitting in that small condo they'd shared, surrounded by empty rooms and full bank accounts, smiling. 3 weeks later, Lila got a notification that stopped her cold. A property sale alert. She'd set up alerts for her old neighborhood, mostly curiosity about what her former neighbors were up to. The penthouse in Jonas's building had been purchased. All cash. $4.2 million. The buyer's name was listed under a corporate entity. Obsidian Holdings, LLC. She knew immediately who owned it. That night, Jonas confirmed it. Did you hear? Some tech guy bought the penthouse above us. Paid cash, apparently. Must be nice. Lila said nothing, just nodded and pushed food around her plate. Noah had bought the penthouse. In their building. Right above them. Not near them. Above them. Looking down. 4 months after the penthouse purchase, Lila walked into a conference room and saw her future end. The meeting had been called suddenly. All senior marketing staff, plus Jonas and 2 people from finance. The email had been vague. Strategic planning session. Mandatory attendance. Lila arrived early. She'd been working 80-hour weeks lately, trying to prove herself after the publicity disaster with Noah. Jonas had been distant, his promises of partnership and promotion quietly shelved. But she was still good at her job, still valuable. She had to be. The room filled. Lila sat 3 seats from the head of the table. Jonas sat at the opposite end, scrolling through his phone. He hadn't looked at her. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened. Michael Reeves, the company's CEO, walked in. Behind him came 2 people Lila didn't recognize. A man in an expensive suit, 50-ish, carrying a briefcase. And behind him, Noah. He wore a charcoal suit she'd never seen before. His hair was the same, a little too long, but everything else about him screamed money. The watch, the shoes, the way he carried himself, like he owned not just the room but the building and everyone in it. Because Lila realized with growing horror, he probably did. Thank you all for coming, Michael said. He looked tired, defeated. I want to introduce you to Richard Fallon from Obsidian Capital and his client, Noah Callan. Jonas's head snapped up. He looked at Noah, then at Lila. His face went pale. Obsidian Capital has acquired a controlling interest in our company, Michael continued. As of this morning, we're officially operating under new ownership. Mr. Callan is here to discuss the transition. The room went silent. Lila couldn't breathe. She stared at Noah, willing him to look at her, but his eyes swept over her like she was furniture. Richard Fallon opened his briefcase. Thank you, Michael. I'll keep this brief. Obsidian Capital specializes in acquiring underperforming marketing firms and restructuring them for growth. We've reviewed your financials, your client list, and your operational structure. We see significant potential here, but also significant waste. Waste? Jonas spoke up. We've increased revenue 12% year over year. You've increased costs 18%, Noah said. It was the first time he'd spoken. His voice was calm, factual. Revenue growth is meaningless if margins are shrinking. You're billing more and keeping less. That's not success. That's inflation with extra steps. Jonas's jaw clenched. With all due respect, Mr. Callan, marketing is more complex than software. We invest in relationships, in long-term client development. You invest in expensive lunches and conference trips while your junior staff does the actual work, Noah said. He slid a folder across the table. I have 6 months of expense reports. Would you like me to read them aloud? Jonas said nothing. Noah continued. Obsidian Capital is going to streamline operations. That means cutting redundant positions, renegotiating vendor contracts, and eliminating expense accounts that don't generate measurable return on investment. You're firing people, Michael said. I'm optimizing. Some positions will be eliminated. Others will be restructured. Those who add value will stay. Those who don't won't. Lila finally found her voice. You can't do this. Noah looked at her, really looked at her. For 3 seconds, his eyes met hers, and she saw nothing in them. No anger, no satisfaction, just cool calculation. I already did, he said. Richard took over. We'll be conducting individual assessments over the next 2 weeks. You'll each meet with our transition team. HR will provide details. For now, continue your current projects, but all major spending decisions need approval from our office. The meeting ended. People filed out, shell-shocked. Lila sat in her chair, unable to move. Jonas stormed past her without a word. Noah gathered his papers. He walked to the door, then paused. Turned back. Looked directly at her. Lila, he said. Just her name. Nothing else. How could you, she asked. How could I what? Make smart business decisions? Invest wisely? Buy a company that was hemorrhaging money and try to save it? You did this to punish me. I did this because it was a good investment. The fact that you work here is just a coincidence. He tilted his head slightly. Or is it, you'd leave me to be with Jonas, the VP of this company? So really, you punished yourself. This is cruel. No, cruel would be firing you immediately out of spite. What I'm doing is giving everyone a fair assessment. If you're good at your job, you'll keep it. If you're not, he shrugged, then the market will correct itself. I'm good at my job. Then you have nothing to worry about. He left. Lila sat alone in the conference room, surrounded by empty chairs and the smell of fear, and understood that Noah hadn't just bought her company. He bought her future, and he was about to decide what it was worth. 2 weeks later, the assessments were complete. Lila was called into a small office on the building's executive floor. Not the conference room, not HR, an office that smelled like new carpet and fresh paint. Richard Fallon sat behind the desk. Noah stood by the window, looking out at Seattle. Ms. Hart, Richard said, thank you for coming. Please sit. She sat. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them in her lap. We've reviewed your work over the past 3 years, Richard continued. Your campaigns show creativity and strategic thinking. Your clients speak highly of you. Your conversion rates are above team average. Hope flickered in her chest. Thank you. However, the hope died. However, Richard repeated, your position is redundant with 3 other senior associates. We're consolidating the department, and we can't justify keeping everyone. I'm being let go. Your position is being eliminated. We're offering a severance package, 6 months salary, health insurance continuation, and a letter of recommendation. 6 months. She could survive 6 months if she cut back. If she moved out of Jonas's place. What about Jonas? She asked. Richard glanced at Noah. Noah turned from a window. Jonas Meyer has also been let go, Noah said. His assessment revealed a pattern of taking credit for subordinates' work, inflated expense accounts, and several HR complaints that were never properly addressed. Lila blinked. You fired him? I didn't fire him. The data fired him. I just processed the paperwork. This is revenge. All of it. You bought this company because I work here. Because Jonas and I bought this company because it was undervalued and mismanaged, Noah said. The fact that it makes your life uncomfortable is a side effect, not the goal. I don't believe you. I don't need you to. He walked to the desk and pulled out an envelope. Set it in front of her. Your severance details are inside. Sign the documents by Friday. If you don't, the offer expires, and you'll leave with nothing but what you're legally entitled to. Lila stared at the envelope. You really are going to destroy everything, aren't you? I'm restructuring a failing business. If that destroys what you built here, maybe what you built wasn't very strong. She stood up, grabbed the envelope. Her hands were still shaking. I hope you're happy. I'm successful, Noah said. Happiness is optional. She turned to leave. Lila. She stopped. Didn't turn around. For what it's worth, Noah said, you were actually good at your job. Better than Jonas, at least. If you'd wanted this life more than you wanted to be seen having this life, you might have made it. The words hit harder than any insult could have. She left without responding. 3 months after losing her job, Lila stood outside Noah's building in the rain. She didn't have an umbrella, didn't have much of anything anymore. The severance had run out. Jonas had broken up with her 2 weeks after they'd both been fired, said he needed to focus on himself, and that her energy was bringing him down. Her mother had stopped calling after the 4th time Lila asked to borrow money. She'd applied to 47 jobs, got 3 interviews, 0 offers. Everywhere she went, people knew her story. The woman who left her husband and lost a fortune. The woman who tried to smear him in the press. The woman who couldn't hold onto anything. So she'd come here, to the building where Jonas's apartment had been, where Noah and now owned the penthouse. She didn't have a plan, just a desperate need to talk to him, to make him understand, to make something change. The doorman stopped her in the lobby. Can I help you? I need to see Noah Callan. Penthouse. Is he expecting you? No, but then I can't let you up. Security policy. Please. I just need 5 minutes. I just need to talk to him. The doorman's face was kind but firm. I'm sorry, ma'am. If you'd like, you can leave a message, and I'll make sure he gets it. She almost argued, almost caused a scene. But what would it accomplish? Noah knew exactly where she was in life. He'd probably watched her spiral from his penthouse window like studying cells under a microscope. No message, she said. The doorman handed her an envelope. Mr. Callan left this for you. Said you might stop by. Her hands were numb as she took it. White envelope. Her name on the front, in handwriting she recognized. She didn't open it in the lobby. She walked outside, back into the rain, and sat on a bench 2 blocks away. Her clothes soaked through. She didn't care. She opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper. Heavy stock. Expensive. At the top, printed in simple black text. You traded loyalty for luxury. Now you have neither. Below it, his signature. Just an N and a line. And beneath that, a check. Not money. A copy. Printed on expensive paper. A framed reproduction of the divorce settlement she'd signed. The one where she'd taken the apartment and the alimony and walked away from everything else. At the bottom, in Noah's handwriting, final and irrevocable. Lila sat on the bench in the rain and finally cried. Not quiet tears. Not dignified grief. She sobbed like something inside her had broken beyond repair. She'd lost everything. Her marriage, her job, her dignity, her mother's respect, her own self-image. And the man she'd left for someone better was sitting in a penthouse she'd once bragged about wanting to live in, looking down at the wreckage of her life, feeling nothing. She stayed on that bench for an hour, maybe 2, until the rain stopped and the sun started breaking through clouds. Then she walked home to the studio apartment she'd rented with what was left of her severance. 400 square feet, second-hand furniture, no view. She put the framed settlement on her kitchen counter and stared at it. Noah had one, not because he was cruel, not because he'd lied or cheated or manipulated, but because he'd simply let her show him who she really was, and then he'd made sure she'd face the consequences of her own choices. That was the worst part. She'd done this to herself. 1 year after Lila walked away, Noah stood on his penthouse terrace and watched the sun set over Seattle. The city glowed orange and gold, buildings catching fire in the dying light. Below him, traffic moved like blood cells through arteries. The world turning. People going home to families, to partners, to lives they'd built on foundations stronger than pride. Behind him, the sliding door opened. Rita stepped out, 2 glasses of wine in her hands. Thought you might need this, she said, handing him one. Thanks. They stood in silence for a while, watching the city breathe. Dean said the company's expanding into commercial contracts. Rita said finally. Government work is great, but he thinks you could triple revenue with the private sector. Dean's probably right. You don't sound excited. Noah took a sip of wine. I am. Just tired. From working too hard or from winning too much. He glanced at her. Rita was the only person who could call him out without judgment. She'd been there through everything. The marriage, the divorce, the quiet years of building something from nothing while his wife measured his worth in social media posts. She came by again last week, Noah said. Lila, doorman called, said she left without making a scene. Just asked to talk to me and accepted the no. Did you talk to her? No. What would be the point? Rita leaned against the railing. The point would be closure. For both of you. She has closure. She made choices. She's living with them. And you? You really don't forgive anyone, do you? Noah looked at his sister. Smart. Tough. Fighting her own battles in a legal world that didn't make things easy for women like her. She understood consequences better than most. Forgiveness is mercy, he said. Mercy is for the innocent. And Lila's not innocent. She chose luxury over loyalty. She chose status over partnership. She chose to believe the worst about me because it made her decision easier. Those were her choices, Rita, not mine. But you could still. No. The word came out harder than he intended. I could forgive her for leaving. I could forgive her for doubting me. But I won't forgive her for making me prove my worth like I was a product she was evaluating. I'm not perfect, but I deserve better than that. And letting her back in now would tell her that she was right to treat me that way. Rita was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. You're right. She made her choices. You don't owe her anything. They finished their wine in silence. The sun disappeared behind the Olympics, leaving the sky purple and bruised. What are you going to do now? Rita asked eventually. You've got more money than you'll ever spend. You've proven your point. What comes next? Noah thought about it. He'd spent 4 years building Obsidian Shield. Another year restructuring his life after divorce. Another year watching the woman who'd left him spiral through the consequences of her own decisions. He'd won. Completely. Absolutely. And now what? I'm funding scholarships, he said. Women in STEM. Full ride. No strings. Dean's handling the logistics. Rita raised an eyebrow. That's specific. The world told Lila her worth was in how she looked and who she married. She believed it. I want to fund women who know their worth comes from what they can build. That's either really noble or really petty. Can it be both? Rita laughed. Actually laughed. God, I love you. You're the most vindictive, good person I've ever met. I prefer strategically charitable. They went back inside. The penthouse was everything Lila had dreamed of when she talked about luxury apartments. Modern furniture, abstract art, smart home technology. The kind of place that screamed success in a language she would have understood. But Noah had bought it for himself. Because he wanted it. Because he could. Not to prove anything to anyone. Well, maybe to prove one thing. He walked to the window and looked down at the city. Somewhere out there, Lila was probably in her studio apartment, working a job she didn't love, living a life she hadn't planned. He felt nothing about it. Not satisfaction. Not guilt. Just the quiet certainty that he'd made the right choices while she'd made the wrong ones. And now they were both living with the results. Dean called. Noah answered. Boss, we got 3 new contract offers today. All commercial. All major players. If we take even 2 of them, we're looking at billion-dollar valuation by Q3. Send me the details. I'll review tonight. You got it. Oh, and that scholarship thing? We got 50 applications in the first week. Some of these kids, man, they're brilliant. One girl designed a quantum encryption protocol at 16. 16. Fund her. All of them. Every single one who qualifies. Money's supposed to mean something, Dean. Make it mean something. You're a good man, boss. I'm a rich man. There's a difference. He ended the call. Rita was watching him from the kitchen. You really are going to change the world, aren't you? I'm going to change my corner of it, Noah said. That's all anyone can do. And Lila? What happens to her? Noah poured himself water from the tap. Drank it. Set the glass down. Nothing happens to her. She'll find a job eventually. Maybe she'll find someone new. Maybe she'll learn something from all this. Or maybe she won't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. That's cold. That's reality. He looked at his sister. She left for gold. I stayed for silence. Turns out, silence was worth more. Rita shook her head. You're going to die alone on this hill. You know that? Probably. He smiled. But at least it'll be my hill. and the view is fantastic. They stayed up late that night, talking about business and family and everything except Lila, because she wasn't part of the story anymore. She was just a chapter that had ended. A lesson learned. A mistake that taught him exactly what he needed to know about people who measured worth in dollars and social media posts. At midnight, Rita left. Noah walked her to the door. "Call me tomorrow," she said. "We need to talk about Mom's birthday present." "I'll call." She hugged him. "I'm proud of you. You know that, right? For everything you've built." "Thanks, Rita. And for not being bitter, even though you have every right to be." Noah thought about that. About bitterness. About whether what he felt was cold calculation or justified indifference. "I'm not bitter," he said finally. "Bitter would mean I still cared enough to be hurt. I don't. She's just someone I used to know. Someone who made bad choices and lived with them. That's all." "If you say so." After she left, Noah stood in his penthouse, alone with his thoughts and his success. He walked to the window one more time and looked down at Seattle, the city that had watched his marriage end, watched his company grow, watched him become exactly who he'd always been, just richer and more validated. Somewhere down there, Lila Hart was trying to rebuild a life from the pieces she'd shattered. He hoped she succeeded, not because he loved her anymore, not because he wanted her to be happy, but because her success or failure didn't matter to him one way or another. She taught him that loyalty had value, that patience paid off, that the people who judged worth by appearances would eventually learn that appearances meant nothing at all. And for that lesson, he was almost grateful. Almost. He turned away from the window, away from the past, and walked into his future. A future built on code and contracts and the quiet satisfaction of being exactly who he was, no apologies, no explanations. The world finally knew who Noah Callan really was, and he didn't need anyone's validation anymore, not even his own.